Welcome back to yet another episode of your Re-Educated podcast. Today we have two extremely special guests. I'm very excited for today's conversation. Our first guest is Rowan Baptiste, a program director at BAMSI, a nonprofit organization founded in Brockton, Massachusetts, with the vision of creating equal opportunities for individuals with developmental disabilities and mental and behavioral health challenges. He spent 16 years as a program director for the Elliott Community Human Services, mentoring and working with at-risk children. And our second guest is Keith Thomson, who served in the Marines in the Gulf War as a tank crewman and then worked for the San Diego Sheriff Department as a corrections officer for 10 years, then continuing at the Department of Youth Services in Boston as a program director for 14 years. How are you both doing today?
Doing good, man. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation today. And that's always so, one thing that has been an ongoing joke is I've recently just started reading these bios. And every single time, I just don't read out loud that often anymore. So every single time I get through one, I make at least one mistake. So today I was doing it a little more slowly and purposeful. And I think I almost had it fully right. So
Did a great job. Did a great job.
Thanks, Keith. Yeah, but I think today's conversation is something that needs to be had. Something I was telling both of you earlier is that a lot of the conversations that we've had on this podcast so far have been with academics, and there's this kind of disconnect between what ends up happening in academia versus what really happens on the ground. And I think often when we think about schools, we primarily only think about the public education school system, and we completely neglect the kids who are imprisoned or having a much harder time and who have to find alternative ways to get to their education. So one thing I'm really curious to start with, and I'll start with you, Keith, is how did you find your interest in working with at-risk children, and what was your journey to get to where you are today?
Well, my journey actually began with growing up in the city and growing up in projects of Boston, Heath Street projects to be exact. And I would have been considered a at-risk youth as well. Growing up, I always had a good family base around me. And my family dynamics is a very complicated one, but I had support when I needed support in my life. And so as I grew older, and I kind of decided I needed to leave Boston because of the risks that I was putting myself in, and being involved in. And I just, I made a decision to join the Marine Corps. And when I did that, when I moved out to California, the Marines took pretty good care of me. I had a nice big house and stuff like that, but I never forgot about my family back here in Boston. And I had family members that were one of my little cousins, he ended up getting murdered in Boston, and he was pursuing a music career, and he got murdered at 16 years old. And that I was trying to get him and his sister, bring them to California to avoid that thing right there, that something bad could happen to them. She ended up coming out to California and living with me, and I got married young too. Got married at 19 years old, and me and my wife at the time raised her. She was 13. I was 9. I was 9. Actually, we got her when she was 12. And then we also got my sister's, not my sister, excuse me, my ex-wife's brother. And he was the same age as, 14 years old when I got hold of him. And I brought him out to California and was able to stabilize their life. So that's pretty much where I got into really like trying to help the youth. I've always been that kind of energy.
Dang, thank you for sharing your story. I'm actually very excited to ask you more questions and get into some of your motivations. And Rowan, what about you?
Well, I kind of my story isn't as good as that one. But now I got into helping the kids from. I'll start back. I wasn't an at-risk youth, but I was a behavioral youth, if that makes sense. I was aggressive and had anger built in me, so I fought a lot. So I jumped from four different four different elementary schools before I got to the fifth grade. Fast forward to when I get older. No, not fast forward, but so got into MECO, got into MECO, which kind of saved me because they wanted to send me to a behavioral school. And I knew that wouldn't be the outcome because I'll be doing the same thing. So I got into MECO, got accepted into MECO. It was a culture shock because that was a time when the Charles Stewart thing went on where we was in the inner city kids was getting, strip search and all that stuff by racist cops of the opposite color. So me going out to MECO was kind of a culture shock. So I was really observant. I get out there, I start playing football. My junior year, start playing football, which kind of saved me from the knucklehead stuff back here, back in the in the city, because I was too tired to hang on the block. You know what I'm saying? I was too tired to be active. After practice, I would go home, do my homework, and fall asleep doing my homework, so I couldn't hang. Did the club thing for a while, did the security. After I came back from playing college ball, arena ball in Tennessee, came back to the security, the club thing. That was looking good. Was getting in trouble here and there at the club, doing the clubs. Not because I was the aggressor, because, when people get drunk, they don't realize what they're doing or saying. And then when you do your job, they feel attacked and they want to report you for, aggressive behavior towards them, assaultive behavior towards them. So I left out of there. A friend of mine, one of my best friends, he brought me into the DYS. I really didn't plan on staying there as long as I was. I was like, all right, I'll do this for like 4 or 5 months just to get out the club scene, get back in the work mode, because that was actually my first job. So mind you, I'm there. So I started on the floor. So while I'm a floor worker, I see what these kids are not getting. It's like they were locked up and just forgot about. There's no high set, no type of education, no community resources, no connection to the community. And then they let them out and wonder why they come back in within 1 or 2 weeks. So my goal, I said, if I'm gonna be here, then I'm gonna climb the ladder. Climbed the ladder, went to supervisor within 3 years, was a supervisor for, assistant supervisor for a year and a half, then went to supervisor, was a supervisor for like 2.5 years, then went to become a assistant program director. And in that stint, in that 7 years or 5 or 7 years that I was on the floor, I had like 10 different program directors. Like they never lasted. So my thing was, okay, if I get to this seat, I got to be consistent. I can't just come here for 6 months and leave, because then the same stuff will be happening, the same stuff, because they get this. When a new program director comes in, program changes. When program changes, these are when the kids get agitated because they're like, why are we changing? We just was comfortable with this. They don't understand that as kids. So once I got to that seat, I said, I'm gonna stay here. So I was an assistant program director for probably about, I want to say 2 years. And then I became the PD. And while I became the PD, I made it my point to provide programming, high set, any type of curriculum, any type of workshop, any type of resource that these kids can stay up to date with the community and not fall behind with what society, with what's going on in society. And I made it my goal, and it was successful. Some of the, I created high set to these kids. college prep. Some of the kids come in that already have that high school diploma. They would let them sit there and rot. No, we're gonna do a college prep course online. Bunker Hill was one of the colleges that accepted our students to do the online participation. Virtual welding, OSHA in 12, Safe Serve. I brought in Shakespeare Theater,
That's
so
cool.
that way the kids can see different aspects of theater. It's not just getting up there and performing. You got um, stage presence, you got lighting, you got wardrobe, you got script writing, offered
Mm,
all those avenues to them. And then had them perform in front of the commissioner, DYS, the director, all of that. They came to the unit, sat down, and watched these kids display their talent.
mm,
So, to your question, what got me involved was seeing the lack of support these kids had,
mm.
and then seeing how somebody came to me and suggested that I play a sport, which kind of saved me from going the wrong way, taking the wrong path.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful how we can only really tell as our life progresses what were the small little advices or activities that someone had helped us find that steered us in a certain way versus another. And it's often
Yeah,
things that we would not have expected. So,
exactly.
I mean, I think there's so much to dive into just from what both of you have already shared. And maybe I'll start with Keith. When we look at a lot of these at risk kind of, I'm first before we even use that term, I want to get a better understanding of when we use the word at risk, what does that mean? At risk of what?
I'm gonna speak on that. They're not really at risk. It's just people scared to talk to them and find out what they need. That's the
Hmm.
problem. They put a label on them. Or just talk to the kids, and that's why me and Keith had good programming, because we didn't stay in the office. We was taking them to the gym. We was out there actively participating them, and letting them know what's wrong, what's right, what's gonna. I would tell my kids, hey, listen, I know people that did the same thing that you did. It didn't end up well. Either you can change it, or this is what's gonna happen. Yeah, it's reality. You got to be real with them. You got to talk to them. You got to let them know what's. You can't sell them a story.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, they trust you. So when you tell them a story and you lie to them, you lose their trust. Now it's going to be hard to gain that back.
Hmm.
And for me, as far as when you use the term at risk youth, what it, what the way I look at it is there's if you look at like youth development, right? And you look at the things that are necessary to give youth a chance to be productive in life.
Productive, yep.
Um, there's a lot of things that will put someone at risk. Your income, how much your family income is coming in. Um, is there is there what kind of parenting is going on? Is there one house one person running the house, or is there a father there, grandmother there, that kind of backup, um, oversight of a youth? Is he left? Are they latchkey kids, where they come home and no one's there?
Mm.
Um, is there other activities set up outside for those kids? Um, like getting checkups and stuff like that. So I think, and then their school progress. So I think a lot of those elements is what causes someone to be at risk.
And and
Hmm.
to and to and to piggyback off of KT, the big answer is, I mean, the big thing is idle time. If we don't provide, if we take away idle time for these kids, it'll be less violence or less acting out in the community. It'll be less at-risk youth, because they'll be
Hmm.
doing things. But when they don't have idle time, when they have a lot of idle time, you we was kids. You know, it was fun when we was kids, joking on people, laughing, cracking, making jokes, picking, you know what I'm saying? Like you just stuff that you're not supposed to do, but as a kid, you don't realize that you're really hurting somebody's feelings. But
Hmm.
that's what the idle time.
Yeah. I mean, because what I was going to ask you next is what are some of the things that we've seen that, are characteristics of people's lives that lead them to take some of the decisions that they do? And I think you both laid it out perfectly, which is support system,
Hmm.
the income, the people that children are raised around.
Correct.
Because,
That's a big that's a big one because you're at those times that's what kind of shapes your
Life.
outlook of the world. So if you don't have quality people around you or don't have the access to people, let's say a parent for whatever reasons went through their you can go through hard times. Everybody goes through hard times, but how do you process that? How do you present
hmm,
to your kid? How do you present to that kid that's watching you? So if you're doing a lot of drinking and smoking, and I don't, you're adult, do what you're supposed to do, but do what you want to do. But at the same time, those eyes, like their minds are like clay, and they're like
Sponges, yeah.
recorders. Yeah, they're like recorders. They see everything. So when you walk out the door, and if your neighborhood is full of drugs or people running around and doing illegal stuff, and you see that, and you start idolizing that because that's what's pushed upon you, that's at risk. You're at risk,
hmm,
and that shapes those things.
yeah.
But I know
I mean,
one thing, and I can speak for KT, but one thing we do is we tell these kids what's in the community. Like there's manipulators, there's people that's gonna tell you to do wrong. You have to make your own decision. And when you make your own decision, it has, you know what I'm saying? It's your decision dictates your life.
mm,
I can tell you something, KT can tell you something, your mother can tell you something, your father, but at the end of the day, you have to make that decision. So your decision dictates your life.
yeah. I mean, I'm curious to. I mean, I have a certain track that I want to go to that's educationally influenced, but I also want to ask you so many questions because I'm just fascinated for my own life, some of these things that you're going through, and so I want to be a little vulnerable and share here, but there are certain things that are happening in my life that I'm trying to figure out how to handle these two opposing forces, which are one side of it is, hey, this certain decision or action will make you feel good in this moment. Why don't you take it? And the other side is, well, if you take this action right now, it won't set you up for the goals that you want to do in the future. And I know that this is difficult even, as I'm in my getting to my later 20s, and I can only reflect back on who I was when I was 16 and 17 and how difficult it was to make that decision back then. I mean, at that age, my brain just wanted to do whatever felt good in that moment. So I'm curious, and maybe I'll ask you first, Rowan, this time, is what are some of the approaches that you take with the children that you're working with to kind of make them have to fathom, what do I want my future to look like? Is this decision going to impact that?
So, me, you know, like I said, I was a jump from school to school because fights, had my losses, had my wins, but at the end of the day, I didn't give up. And when I tell people I'm a program director, they look at me like, wow, so I let
Mm,
these kids see it. I let these kids see it. Like I'm from the inner city with you. I got killers and all that. That's friends, just like you. My family wasn't rich. All the excuses they use, I can say I was in the same situation and look at me. There's more life. You got to tell them, you got to be real. You got to be raw with these kids and you got to let them know reality. And along with that, you got to let them know it's more life. Like I know KT can vouch for it, but when we grew up, like getting to 18 was like now we celebrate 50. That
mm,
when your 18th birthday, you're proud because you made it. which is not a good thing because you're supposed to live. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're supposed to live, but the kid's mentality is like, okay, once I'm gonna die anyway, so fuck it, boom. Nah, it's more life. You can't give up because you messed up at 16, you messed up at 15, you messed up at 20. Nah, it's still more life. So I use an example, another example too that my cousin uses, and he's like oversees the behavioral schools. That not the lockups, but after they leave his school, they go to lockup. And he has on his desk, he has his diploma from the behavioral school because he graduated from a behavioral school. He has a diploma, he has his bachelor's degree, and he has his master's degree, and he has his rap sheet. So he lays it out on his desk. He has his records, which is like a Bible, but I don't want to use a Bible, but it's thick as a Bible. And then he shows his diploma. You know, he shows the progress through life. Like, and his rap sheet is worse than a lot of kids that's in there. You know what I'm saying? Like and that's another thing. These kids think that we was born with a tie on with slacks and we just came into this world. No, we experienced and we lived stuff just as well as y'all are doing. But at the end of the day, we didn't give up on our life, man, and nobody gave up on us. And that's what I try to preach to the parents now and the I don't want to say OGs, but yeah, I guess OGs in the community that are scared that want to give up on these kids. It's like they didn't give up on us, so why are we giving up on them? You know, you got to be constant. You got to be repetitive and repeat and repeat and repeat. That's what a good leader is. A good leader is you got to make it clear to where you're painting the picture.
Yeah. So, and Keith, I'll maybe ask you this question. What have you found to be some of the best goals to kind of to bring somebody out to be like, okay, there is something better in the future. This is something I want to work towards. What are some of those visions that you have found to be most effective?
Well, what I found to be effective with the youth, right? Because you gotta look at it from you remember when you're 20 some years old, right? So the way you look at the world and the way I look at the world might be a little different because I'm older than you, right? So my experiences of growing up might be a lot of things that still work when I was younger to this day as far as respect, having confidence in yourself, those type of things. What I've learned with the youth is to be able to show your vulnerability, to be able to come down and understand. Like we as adults, we have the answers, right? But remember when you was younger, the adults wasn't cool. So what your parents were listening to, you was gonna listen to something different. The way your parents dress, you're gonna dress differently. And so I always understood that with the youth. So what I do is I am able to connect to them because I listen to them first and foremost. I don't try to tell them what to do. I listen to them, and then once I hear where they're at and how their mind is clicking, then I give them tidbits like a breadcrumbs, and I'm leading them to the answer. But I like them the bell to go off in their head because one thing about that is if you can tell them, but if they can see it, the bell goes off and they'll remember it and they have a better chance to make the right decision. And for me, it was I had a couple of good examples that I could use. So I worked I at DYS. I did long term and short term uh, treatments. So that's after they go through the process, they figure out how much time. So they'll go to Rowan's programs first, and they'll stay there, and they're going through their court processes. So they're detoxing at that time. They're confused at that time as far as how the courts are going to handle them. They got all kind of stuff going on in their head right at that time. By the time they go through that whole process, Rowan's side of the spot has those kids where now you can kind of, they gave them tools in which we have to build off of those tools when they come to either short term, meaning that they're going to be there for a certain amount of time, to long term, meaning they're going to be there for years. Um, and during that time, you're building up their confidence because a lot of kids don't have confidence in themselves. That's why you have the group mentality, the gang mentality, because they don't have confidence in themselves. Um, and a direct example that I could use, my kids, they're able to go on passes when they get to a certain position in their treatment. And so I remember we were sitting there and I'm not a great chess player, but I know how to play chess. So I remember one day sitting there with the kids, and I play everything with them. I even go to school with them and relearn school with them because they love it when you participate with them at their level. And so I was sitting there playing chess with them, and a group of them all, they competitive. The kids are very competitive no matter what you do. You just got to make it fun for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had tournaments where we would do chess tournaments, and then I would buy, the winners would get prizes, whether it's McDonald's or whatever it is, it's going to be a prize for the winners. And while I was sitting there one day, I was like, you know something? I think we good enough to play against a college. I said, you know something? I'm going to find out if Harvard got a chess team, and we're going to play them. And everybody was all happy, like, yeah. So a clinician had a person that worked up there, and he loved chess, and he volunteered his time to come in and teach my kids how to play chess. With that connection, I ended up setting up. One day I was like, "Hey, let's bring the kids up to Harvard since it's right here. Let's go." So they let us take them to a field trip up there, and the kids they were like, "Oh my God, Harvard, Harvard!" When you think of Harvard, you're thinking of a massive school, the smartest people ever. And so they was really like, "Oh man, I can't do Harvard. Harvard's over the top." Well, during that time, we went and we met with the law professor, the guy that ran the law schools, and he did a question and answer with his kids that were going to school. And those kids were so fascinated with our kids from DYS. And our kids, they was asking them questions. They got there and they was talking to them, and next thing you know, they had command of the room. And those kids, after we did that trip, those kids was like, man, I could see myself in college. I could see myself going to Harvard. You know what I mean? They had got confidence like that. And, so that experience is what I've always tried to do, like show them the thing, not buy a book or nothing like that, but bring them. Because once you see something with your own eyes or touch it and feel it, you can see yourself doing it.
It's believable. It's believable.
Right. So me, I'm an unorthodox type of person. I play outside the box. So being in that position and being at Elliott, I have more freedom to do stuff. So I contacted the movie commissioner. I had her come in and do a presentation about films and stuff and all the jobs besides being an actor, and they offered them jobs there. Um, we had kids going to get their barber licenses. We end up getting a barber chair inside the place. Um, one day I was sitting there uh, before my program shut down. I went to Rose's program. Um, we one day I was sitting there. I'm like, thinking about New Balance because it's a big factory here and they have a big complex. And I said, you know something? I looked at their list of who's working in there, and I said, okay, the president, I'm not going to be able to get in touch with him. He's probably busy. His right hand man, I'm probably not going to get in touch with him, but I'm going to get that third or fourth person. And I just called him out of the blue. And everybody loves working with our at-risk kids. And so I was setting up a thing so that they can go up there and learn about how shoes are designed and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And try to get them jobs and stuff like that. So with me and the kids, like I've won awards from being at DYS. I won an award that was from the kids.
Yeah. The Was it the commissioner award, right?
Commissioner's Award. Yeah, I won that. I won the
Yeah.
Program Director Award.
Staff of the
Um,
year, yeah. I got that
and
too.
all my accolades that I've achieved were about the kids.
Hmm. There's some really powerful stuff you said there. I mean, I think that's why even as this conversation started, something I felt a little weird about was like using the word at risk.
Mhm.
Just in the sense of I think it ends up drawing this unfair line between it separates kids from just being kids. It separates some kids who are non at risk and then those who are at risk. But I think one of the most powerful moments I've ever had in my life teaching was when I was teaching at in East Palo Alto, which is in the Bay, and it's a really impoverished community. And that's when I realized I was like, these kids, I had never worked in a community like that before, and so but when I was there, I was working with 5 and 6 year olds. I had learned that there were no differences. I mean, all children are fascinated by the world, and they want to learn why the sun goes up and down, and why
Yes.
animals move in the way that they do. There is no Every child was in love with math and science, and it did not matter how wealthy you were. It didn't matter, what the color of your skin was. I mean, there was just curiosity is something that is so human that it
Hmm.
unites us all. And that is something I've always thought, which is that when it comes to learning, it is really difficult to ever find a person on this planet who just doesn't like learning. It doesn't have to be learning about one specific thing, but the idea of learning more and understanding the environment that you're in better is something that I think is truly joyous for anyone when it's done right. And so one question I have for you, and I'll start with you this time, Keith, is what do you think is one of the hardest obstacles to getting somebody to want better for themselves? Because I think no matter how awesome the services you provide is, someone has to want better for themselves. So what do you think is one of those obstacles that makes someone afraid of that?
The obstacles from being incarcerated, I'll take it from being incarcerated. The obstacles, and I guess it's prevalent in the community as well, is they're going back to the same location.
Mm,
That's the biggest. No matter how we get a kid to think, right, and how we start opening up them doors and opening their eyes, they go back to that same location in which they got a lot of that stuff pumped into them. And
Peer
so,
pressure.
right, and so, you know, that piece of it, I can equate it to my life. Okay, I was born in Bermuda. I was born in Bermuda. I came here when I was like 1 years old. But every summer up until my mother left me at 12 years old and dropped me off to my stepmother and my father at the time. Um, and but every year up until that point, I went to Bermuda every summer. I had to go there from as soon as school was out to get me out the projects. Me and my brother and sister get us out the projects. They would send us to our family in Bermuda. So now Bermuda is a beautiful island. It's beautiful. So I got to see sailboats. I got to go fishing. I got to see a whole different, not only see it, but I lived there for 3 months out of the year. And then I would go back for holidays and stuff. So I always knew it was a bigger world out there than just Bromley Heath projects.
mm,
And so that always shaped how, and trust me, I got kicked out of like three high schools. I went to three different middle schools, um, and to the point that I ended up being in school longer. I couldn't go to school at a point, and then I ended up finding a program because I knew the value of education by seeing everybody else around me that was winning. So I wanted the high school diploma bad. I knew, and that was like something that stuck in my. I wanted it, so I did everything. I didn't have to complete it if I didn't want to at that time in my life, because I was very rebellious and running in the streets and stuff. So it's a combination of what you're seeing, what you've been exposed to, and then your own self motivation. I always have faith in myself, Even as a youngin, I had faith in myself. I didn't follow people per se. I go against the grain because I'm happy with myself regardless. If I'm around 100 people, they can all like me or they can all hate me. I like me. And
Yeah.
and not as a boisterous or any of that. It's just that I trust me and I like me, and you know my energies has proven over the years that I probably made the best move by going that route because I've got friends that are not here no more. I've got friends in prison that ain't coming home. You know, I worked in jails and so I know I see it, you know, and to help
Mm.
these kids is to get them. I'll give you one more example. We did a thing. I told you I was in the entertainment business as well. The Source magazine was a huge thing uh in hip hop. They call it the Bible. They call it the Bible of hip hop. And we did shows on TV and all kind of stuff, award shows and everything. And we was doing music. We was trying to put our city, Boston, the kids in Boston, we was open up doors for them as well. So the people I was with at the time, they did a project which was called the Wise Guy Project, which was go to every neighborhood and find the best rapper in their neighborhood, and all of them were gang members that were from separate gangs. And we was
Mm.
able to take them from Boston, the whole group of them, and take them from Boston. We took them out to Houston, Texas. We took them out to California, where they had to rely on each other now. So you ain't got
Mm.
your homies no more. You got us. We're the big dogs. Y'all, you know, we got somewhere to be. Y'all going into the studio. Y'all, you know, working on your careers. And those guys became close. I did it at DYS where I took kids fishing from two rival gangs. Uh, and when they was on their passes, part of their one of the kids was going to get deported unless he completed what he needed to complete and dropped the MS-13 gang. I didn't want to use the gang names and stuff, but his opposite of him, he had the same issues. And so part of their treatment was that we had to keep them separate while they was there. And then we kind of slowly got them to work with each other to the point where we took them fishing and together, and they became best friends.
Wow.
You know, so a lot of times you have to take people out of the environment in which
Mm.
that's causing the issue and take them away and show them something else. The only thing is, ultimately, they have to go back home.
Mm. I mean, I think what you're saying is so profound and a very important part of understanding this. So I'm curious, and I want to get your opinion on this, Rowan. Is when we talk about this location, what are some strategies that people can use that then allows when people leave these systems of incarceration to be in a different location? Is that not really complicated?
Ro, you there? He might have.
I had it on mute. My fault. I had it on
No,
mute.
you good.
Um, so you what you're asking me is the relocation difficult or
Yeah, what are yeah, what are some strategies
so
for that?
it is, but you got to look at it like this. And now I'll probably get slack for this, but the system is a money pit. So they're not going to provide, they're not going to help these kids because they need them to come back in as far as funding because you get like 50,000 a kid.
Hmm.
So they look at it as a money. The system look at it as a money pit. But me per se, I say in order for the kid to get out the gang, you can't put him back in that same environment because a kid is young. He don't know how to handle pressure.
Yeah.
So what I suggested, okay, if they can't get out the hood, then I will bring all the community resources to the building and I put on an informational fair with all the community stakeholders. Went out, connected with them. They came in. I set it up in the gym. So like a job fair. They go around each table, get information, get advice, show what that program shows. And then once that fair was over, I brought everybody to the center of the unit, and I asked them which one you like, what was beneficial, which one you want to come in and talk, which one you want more information, what are you interested in? And I asked those stakeholders to come back to get a jump start. Because what the system does is they tell the kids, go do this, go do that, go do this, go do that, but you don't show them. You don't get them started. A 14, they're coming at 12 now, a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kid is not going to get out and say, oh, I need to go to this place. I need to go to, oh, they're going to resort right back to their friends. So with the information, so I created that informational fair, which was successful because Benjamin Franklin Institution, they offered them laptops, they pay you for a cell phone, they offer all these incentives. But if I didn't bring them to the program, these kids would never know. They would never know the opportunities out there for them. So my thing, what I did is, okay, if they're not gonna relocate these kids out their area, and a lot of times their mothers ain't want to leave. They have other siblings that's in, you know what I'm saying, that are good, that's in school, that's doing their thing. They didn't want to disrupt that household. So yeah, they stay. But if that happens, then we need to bring the resources to them early and get them set up. And that's some of the things I did. Like I got an example for a kid that I really didn't know I touched him like that. He was about 6 feet, 220, and I seen he was athletic in the gym. So I'm like, yeah, you gotta play football, man. You gotta do it because football kind of saved me. You gotta play football. So I called a friend of mine who coached at a local high school. And I said, yo, I got this kid that's there, man. He's going there. I need you to connect with him. He's like, what's his name? I said, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to say names. He's like, oh, I got him on the team. I was like, word. He ends up destroying the league. 2,000 yards rushing, lead the league in tackles. Boom, you got BC, you got Holy Cross, you got all these D1 schools looking at him. But the Globe wrote an article on him about his past, took away all his scholarships. So I had to make another call to a friend of mine who made a call to somebody in Worcester at a school out there. Long story short, he was the leading rusher in the NCAA. He was a president of the school, cum laude. Right now, he's a motivational speaker.
Wow.
So you have to, if they're not going to move out, to answer your question, if they're not going to move out, we have to be creative and can't just give up. So that's the thing. Like teachers, coaches, it's the same thing. Like you can't say a kid's dumb. You can't say a kid don't learn. You have to be creative because everybody can absorb something, but they retain it differently. So you have to be, as a teacher or a coach, creative to teaching this kid how to learn or understand what you're asking them.
Sort of like the program they have, something called Empowering Your Future, right? Vocational curriculum. You have to be able to help them empower themselves. In order to you have to teach them life skills.
Yep.
You definitely have to, be able to have, okay, when you're locked up, you're away from your family. So now you have to rebuild them ties again. You have to rebuild those bonds with the parents to parent, because we become the parent. It feels like it. Their parents are out there, and we control everything that's happening inside for the most part. So what programs have started doing was exploring, engaging the parents. Whether we have to drive all the way up somewhere to go get their parents because they can't make it, well, then we do it.
Yep.
We made it friendly so that when their kids came and they have other kids, we had all kind of snacks and games to play and stuff like that, so that the family dynamics could happen. We set up dinner nights, stuff
Yeah,
like that,
family events.
family events. All I mean, to be honest, even some of the stuff that that we like. I remember one time, you said you went camping before. If you're a kid that went camping, it's probably something that remained with you your
Mm,
whole life. It's probably one of those memories that you remember in a positive way.
mm,
Um, and so being incarcerated, that's everybody was telling me is impossible to do. And I said, okay, I'm gonna figure it out. So I gave them a security plan on how we could do it. And I bought each kid on my program a tent and a sleeping bag, and we went out in the yard. I got a telescope. We we did marshmallows and graham crackers.
nice.
We had the light, the football that light up in the night. We out there
Mm,
playing football. We had the big screen movie time. I mean, we had a blast where it became an annual thing while I was there. The kids in
mm,
other programs were like, I want to get on your program to go camping, and stuff like letting them be kids. But
mm.
but they go home, they're running the house. See, that's the thing. A lot of them are the parents. A
Yep,
lot of
at
them,
14, 15 years old.
yeah, they have a heavy load on their shoulders, stuff like that. And in order to you know, help them not have to leave their community, there's so many programs out here that all these states and stuff give money to, but they don't collaborate with each other.
Mm,
Hmm.
And so if those resources were used better where they got wraparound services all the way to when they end the programs, when they leave the programs. When they leave the programs, they can't even talk to us. So I
Yeah,
spent two
even
years.
to when they even KT,
I
even
sp-
to when
I
they
spent
even when
two
they come into the detention.
Yeah, I spent 2 years with this kid getting them stabilized, or my people, the people working with these kids, trust, build up all that stuff, and they go back to the street and they tell you you can't interact with them.
wow.
When they're your neighbors and they live right next door to you and they expect you not to talk to them. It's crazy.
But I took it upon myself. I drive around the neighborhoods. One day I drove around the neighborhood and I seen a bunch of kids that were on my program before, and they was a little older now, and they was hanging out, and I could tell they was up to no good. And I said, you know something? I said, tomorrow I'm gonna pull up. I'm gonna bring some of guys that have grown up that do the same thing you guys are doing. And I'm gonna take y'all. I'm gonna take y'all fishing. So I pulled up, grabbed about 5 of them, bought them their fishing license, fishing poles, and I took them. To Newport, Rhode Island. Gave them lunch, and we sat out there. And I had my friends mentor them while we were standing there, while we was out there fishing.
Mm,
I didn't ask anybody for no money. I did it myself out of my pocket. And I'm not rich, not by a far shot. But you have to have those kind of commitments out there because these people that got the money, they're not using it wisely, in my opinion.
Hmm.
mm.
So you got to
Yeah.
show that if when you show that you believe in them, they begin to believe in themselves,
Mm.
and it's
I
all
mean,
about your approach.
I think some of what you're touching on from both sides is it's like, it's so deeply profound. I feel like I'm struggling to really sit with it in that, typically coming from a middle class family and usually interacting with education from a place where all it does is simply just help you climb up the social mobility ladder even higher. The way the kids who come from these type of backgrounds in middle class and a higher upper middle class, it's very different in that education is not a form of liberation because they've already been given to in most ways their freedom and their liberation, and it's something that's already can be taken for granted. But I feel like a lot of what you're saying and the kids that you're working with, education serves something completely different for them. It is it is a way to see a world that exists so much farther than just what's around them, because education is the opportunity to for example, to leave the state completely, to go get higher education elsewhere. It is the ability for you to get a job, and that may make you interested and meet all these amazing people who live their lives in a certain way. It is the door, it is the pathway to a very different life. And I think when you're working with those type of kids, it's so important of the content itself that's also being taught. And so I'm really curious to now, kind of switch over to talk a little bit more about the education part itself. So I'll start with you this time, maybe Keith. And that's, what is it do you feel that's most important to be taught for these children that you're working with?
Me, I think math and reading and comprehending what you're reading is huge. I believe that you like, okay, for Department of Youth Service in Massachusetts, these kids that get locked up, they don't even be going to school when they're on the out. But the amazing part, when you start with making them realize that they're progressing, is like every day they got to go to school. Every day they go to school. That's one of the things that we enforce. There's no just laying around, hanging around. Just to get those kids to sit in the classroom, just sit there, not bother nobody else, is a win. Because once you're sitting there and you're acting like you're not learning, you're starting to soak in the game. The only thing about that is getting them not to buy into what a lot of people try to make them believe, which is that the education sucks, what they're getting inside. And I try to get them to see the point of, okay, maybe this teacher, this here, you got to look at it two ways. Either the teacher wanted to work with you guys. How about that? They want to be here with you. Not because they're subpar. There's a lot of myths around the thing. Our kids have a lot of behavioral problems. And so imagine having 4 or 5 different gang members from different gangs that all want to fight on site and trying to do school. And on a program, just walking them to school is a nightmare.
Yeah.
But the school system has done a great job as far as providing opportunity, as far as they give them their own laptops and stuff like that. But a lot of times, if the staff that are working don't participate, then it makes it difficult for the kids to participate. Because, you become their family. That's who they see every day, all day long. So if you sit in the classroom with them and take classes and do tests with them and stuff like that, and make it a priority to you, being a program director is hard. But if your program director does that, you'll see more engagement in the kids. And so for me, I think the school does a decent job in providing the tools they need in the school system inside DYS. And the same struggles that they're having inside DYS, they're having them outside in the regular schools too. Same struggles.
Yeah.
So
Safety.
What are some of the jobs that are like most of these children are interested in or even going into? Because I think one of the challenges is that once you fall behind academically, by the time you're 8 or 9, it becomes progressively harder and harder to catch up. And so especially if you're imprisoned for a few years, I mean, what are the types of professions that people can even go into?
So when they come,
I was gonna say,
What?
as kids coming from, and not to cut you off, Ro, but as kids coming from a treatment program, the world's open to them. The world is truly open to them. They could get into damn near any job because people are willing to understand that these are the kids and we're trying to help them change their path in life. So a lot of companies are open to them. It's the person who's seeking it is what it is. So if you have someone that's in that position and not seeking stuff for the kids to do, there's nothing for them to do.
Rowan, you were going to add something?
If I lost my train of thought, what was it? Repeat the question again. What'd you
it
ask?
was just that when people are progressively falling behind academically, when you're not going to school, or what types of
Okay. I
careers or
got it.
professions?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
types of careers? So when they come in, they all want to be rappers.
Mm.
Yep.
They all
Yep.
want to be rappers
Well,
and gangbangers. That's
and
it.
basketball players.
Yeah, yeah, basketball players. But the harsh reality is if you don't provide programming for them or opportunities, then their mindset is going to stay the same. So, like C-Tech is one of them, which is like Verizon, cable, Comcast type wiring things. You get certificates. So you can get a job once you get out into that field.
You can get a job while
Mm.
you're in there. I have
Yeah,
kids
you get a job.
I've had kids going to work while they're locked up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But I'm at a detention, so detention they can't leave because once they leave, they can go on a run. He's at
Mm.
assessment, so they have the opportunity to leave. We can't because if our kids if they touch foot on out, they're gonna run, and now they're on the run.
Mm.
See,
So we
yeah,
have to.
so they're not okay. So this is the setup. Detention is before you got what the courts are going to give you. So you
Mm.
don't know what your sentence is going to be. You can bail out of detention. So they limit them in
Yeah.
what they allow them to do outside. There's no outside the facility.
Mm.
So I brought everything into the facility.
Right. And then you go from his unit to what is called an assessment unit. So now you stay there for like a 30-day period, and people are, you got clinicians and they're everybody's assessing you to figure out the best, what they call it, right place, right kid at the right time. They're trying to fulfill
Mm.
that, trying to find a location to send them that fits his needs. Um, and that could be with once they do that evaluation, you're either going to go to a short-term program or you're going to go to a long-term program. And they're situated throughout the state. So, during that time when you're at your programs, your short-term or long-term program, that's where a lot of that work goes into acclimating them back into the community.
Mm.
And
And
at
build,
and at where KT was at, it's what is it? Accountability. So if they get in a fight or anything, they get extended. If
Mm.
they do good, they can get out early on good time, right?
yep. They have because when they give them their what they call a grid, they give them their time. They give them, let's say they give them 10 months, 10 months to 16 months. Now there's space in between that if you're doing excellent and things are going good for you and you're doing you're programming and you got job lined up and education's going on, you can go and they could put you up in front of a board and you can go home early.
Mm.
So it's incentivized. Everything's incentivized
Yeah,
for
that's
those
what it
kids.
is.
There is so much more that I feel like I really want to get in with both of you. So I want to say right now, and I'll send you the information later, but I would love to have a part two because I think another part of the conversation that we weren't able to get into today, but I really want to, is also understanding the impact of culture. And, because one of the examples that you had given was a lot of the children that you're working with are interested in becoming rappers or athletes. And I
Right.
think sometimes some of the difficulties are that how do you help somebody see that there's more out there when the culture that you're consuming also pushes a certain narrative on you, right? I mean, I think this was a conversation I was having earlier that I thought was really interesting, but it was that over the last 50, 60 years, when the number one profession that all children wanted were to become astronauts and to become scientists and policemen, and what it's shifted to now are YouTubers and influencers, there's a huge shift in the culture itself that moves away from education. And so when that's happening culturally, how much impact can one individual have on a group of kids? I mean, because there's these much larger forces that are playing here as well, which is that there is this huge rise of desire for fame and for popularity and you know to pop off on social media. And so it's I think the culture itself has changed. And so we're battling two different forces altogether. And so I think both of you probably would have had a lot of experiences dealing with that. And so I would love to, you know, I mean, if you want to share a bit on that right now, and then we can go into it more in depth perhaps later.
Yeah, we got
Yeah,
about you're talking about 50 years of experience between the both of us, man. So we got a lot. Like this probably even, and I know KT can vouch for saying this probably only touched to not even a
Yeah,
fourth of what
nothing.
we got.
Yeah.
right. Yeah, well, I'm definitely open to do a part two, or
Yeah,
however many parts you want to do on, because it's very, you know, it's a very,
we can go
how
over the
could I,
safety part of it or like
Mm.
all of that.
yeah, because I'm also a self defense trainer. I train DY. I used to train the staff on self defense.
Oh, very cool. Yeah,
Yes,
culture,
so that
safety, education. I mean,
all those
it's
things.
huge. Yeah, I
It
mean
is.
the
Yeah,
And just the cultural thing, um, because there are so many different cultures that come through there, even the I don't want to mispronounce the alphabet, um, but they even make accommodations teaching about the differences in people and their what they identify with, stuff like that. That's a whole
yeah.
nother
Identify topic.
how they another topic, how are they treated, how are people treated in there, and it's more
mm,
inclusive, is an inclusive environment is what you're trying to bring and open these kids minds up to, and they're understanding the development of the mind, you know.
Yeah.
mm,
That's a whole
So,
nother subject that we utilize in teaching the staff, about the way the brain operates and works.
yeah. Like one of the things I do is I try to hire a diverse staff. So that
Yeah,
way these kids can see you're not the only like I got people from Haiti, I
yep,
got people from India, I got people from Africa, I got people from all other countries. So they see that what you're struggling with right now is luxury if you go to these other countries. You know what I'm saying? So staff are there to tell their stories, tell how they grow up so they can, oh wow. You know what I'm saying? So they can get
mm,
knowledge and understand. And also to different beliefs, to different values, to like certain words. You know, kids be talking about, yeah, I just smashed this chick. Okay, but he's from I forget where my staff was from, but in this country, they don't have sex until they get
mm,
married.
mm,
So how you're offending him by talking using that language around him.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? But kids don't realize that because they only see where they come from.
yeah. I
mm,
I did a remember the guy I was talking about earlier that taught my kids how to play chess. He was a good resource. He was from Brazil. So me and him collaborated, and he has some friends that were juvenile judges in Brazil. And he brought about 12 to 15 of those judges. Some of them were military judge for juveniles, and he brought all those people up to see how Massachusetts does it. And they was impressed. They was like, wow, man, look at this. And some of the things from positive youth development. I gave them information on stuff like that to take back. I don't know, I didn't do a follow up with those guys, but It was just amazing. And then I've been to Philippines. I've seen kids in despair. I've been to Mexico, Tijuana, see those kids out late at night and stuff like that. But they're still same kids we got here. Same kids. Same bright eyes, same waiting for someone to show them the way. And that's what the problem is. It's not enough focus on showing our youth the way.
Wow. Well, thank you both so much for sharing all your expertise. We will definitely be doing another part. I think, sexual health is another huge area to get into. And I think, these are all really important questions to be had, because education is not only for those who are, not in the system. It's for everyone. And so thank you both for sharing everything.
Yes, thank you for having us, man. This is definitely going to be rooting for you in your endeavors and stuff like that. And I appreciate you giving us a platform to share with people.
Yeah.
And we'll be hearing a podcast from you two soon.
Oh yes, we're definitely heading that way.
What's it going to be called?
I got a story. Well, we don't really know yet, but I got a story, because just real quick, some of these kids, like you talk to them, and sometimes they don't get it till they get there. Like I had a kid, I'm telling him, like, listen, you can't get canteens, you can't get this, you gotta have money, you gotta have this. So he goes up to Walpole and he writes me a letter talking about, I can't afford the sweats and everything's expensive. Can you sell my paintings? And you have to let them know, like, okay, now you have to try to, since you didn't listen, now I gave you all the tools. Now you got to figure it out. Now I can help you try to figure it out, but I'm not going to try to save you now. Once I done told you everything, like, because sometimes that's how some people learn. They got to fail in order to learn. And it's just hard love, tough love. That's what I call it, tough love. Because if I babied him, he wouldn't have got the same message.
And know that every interaction that you have with a kid, youth, you don't know how it's going to affect them. What I pray for in every interaction that I have with a youth is that I give them something that will be useful someday when they come to that. You come to that where you got to make a decision, and I hope that they hear my voice in their head, like, this is what he was talking about. Everybody gets to that when they get, at their own pace, but you just never know. That one little conversation, 2-second conversation you have with someone could be as big as saving someone's life.
Change their life. Yeah.
And it's important to put that level of importance to it.
Yes. Because that's what it is. Yes. If you are locked up as a youth, we can all agree that that's not normal. That's not a normal. At a teenage years, you're supposed to be going to proms and pre-proms and driving your first car and that kind of stuff.
Birthdays.
So if you're in the legal system, right off top is your dire straits right there. And I think people don't take it like that.
But yeah, I'm excited to continue this conversation. And to everyone who's listening, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of our conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you again for listening and making this process so much more enjoyable. If you haven't had the chance to already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts to get the latest updates on new episodes. If you've been learning useful information here, feel free to leave a review as well. A little bit goes a long way in spreading this podcast. And have a wonderful day. And as per usual, stay re-educated.